as a teacher and as a yoga student for many years, I have really enjoyed doing rajakapotasana, which is also called pigeon pose, or pigeon variations. But recently my knees aren't so happy with it, and I discovered that a lot of students can't do the pose either because of unhappy knees or hips in the pose. So these are some variations that you can do. So you'll get similar benefits. You'll get the rotators to muscles within your pelvis there to get worked a little bit more. And let's begin by starting on your belly. So as you start on your belly, just start with your left knee to the side and just look over that the left knee and the hip are roughly aligned, and that the left ankle is right under the left knee. And just walk your arms over to the side here. Just pause here for a moment. Now, as you do, as you press into the inner knee, the left inner knee, have your right leg very active. So tuck your toes under, lift up your knee, and really get the back leg very active. Have the bent leg, the left leg now, pressing in the inner big toe edge and pressing against the inner knee. So it's a very active bent leg and a very active straight leg. You're just coming to the form of the pose nicely. Just so that you can start to wake up the hips in a very slow and more easeful way. Take 5 more breaths here. Breathe in through the nose and breathe out through the nose. And of course, with the knee bent, then you'll be lifting your right hip. I mean, the action is, of course, you want to keep the hip points as parallel as possible. But with the knee bent, it's very difficult to have a total symmetry. And that's part of the issue with a pigeon pose. It's so asymmetric that our bodies really have to be aligned so properly in order to make sure that the SI joint doesn't get jammed in the process here. Now inhale, lift yourself up and come to downward facing dog, just so that you can maybe tell a difference here or not. So lift yourself up and just pedal your legs so that you just kind of check in now with the hip area. And after you've done that, just come to stillness in the downward facing dog. Notice again if you feel any difference there. Before coming all the way down to all fours position. And same thing, just on your belly, see about bending your right knee now then. And as you do, same thing, you want to press the inner knee, press the inner big toe area, walk yourself over so you're just in just a little bit more of a twisting action, and tuck your toes under. So just come down to your belly. You can press your third eye area to your stacked hands. And as you stay in this pose, again, it's a very active, it looks very static, but it's actually very active actions here. The back leg is strong. The bent leg is very active. Pressing very fully, trying to get maybe your underside ribs, your left ribs, to lift slightly, to bring your right ribs down, to see if you can just address that asymmetry just a little bit more. And you're breathing in and out through the nose. And just kind of getting a little opening here, a little prep action. And now inhale, lift yourself up, and same thing. Let's come to downward facing dog just to even things out before going to the next pose. So as you lift up, and same thing, you can just pedal your legs or just remain in stillness here as you pause between the poses here. And of course, one of the best preparations for pigeon pose, if you can't go to it, and certainly as teachers, you know that if a student can't do pigeon prep pose, then a lunge is always a good second choice. So let's come to a lunge. And as you step your right foot right between your hands, just bring your back knee down and walk your foot over to the side. And let me take a little different angle here. So as you walk your foot wide, just come to the outside edge of the foot and walk just like we did earlier, just walk yourself a little bit further away from the bent leg and just bow forward. So you're pressing fully into the outside of the foot as you just let yourself just soften down. Just come to a nice easeful here, not too tough, as you're just kind of getting your awareness to the hip and the knee area. But the leg has to be powerfully drilling in, almost like you're trying to chop wood with the outside of the right foot. And now come back to downward facing dog, just as a transition. In downward facing dog, do the opposite now. Step your left foot right between your hands, bring your back knee down, and just walk your foot just a little bit wider here. And as you walk your foot a little bit wider toward the edge of the mat here, press to the pinky toe side of the foot, and same thing, just draw down. Now, sometimes the floor seems really far away, so that's why I always have blocks available. So you can put your forearms on blocks and just allow yourself to just be in the pose. But being in the pose, again, is not this take it easy shavasana sort of attitude. You're very active. You're really pressing into the foot nicely. And as you press into the outside of the foot, you just soften down even more. And now inhale and lift yourself up to come out of the pose. And as you come out of the pose, come to downward facing dog again. In downward facing dog, lift your heels high and just swing your pelvis to one side. Come back to center and swing your pelvis to the opposite side. And come back to center. Now make your way up to the front of the mat. Walk, step, or hop there. I'm going to use my blocks again. So let's create that form of pigeon pose again. Bend both knees. Place your right ankle just to the outside of the left leg. I've got blocks there just because they're landing points for me. Bend your knee a lot and just take yourself down to find your blocks. And as you do, same thing, the action on the action of the bent leg is very strong. You're spreading your toes, you're drawing the right knee down, and now just bring your heart a little bit closer to the bent leg. So as you come toward a standing leg, a straight standing leg, just bow into that straight standing leg. Pause here. Now, I think the toughest part is coming out of this pose gracefully. So come up to fingertip tops and slowly Lift yourself up. Very good. And now release your foot, and let's come to the other side here. So with the right leg strong, take your left ankle to the top of the thigh there. Bend your knee. Just draw way back, way, way, way back. Take your hands to right at the tops of the blocks here and just soften down. Keep a nice steadiness. Keep a nice engagement of the bent leg with spread toes. Draw the left knee a little further from your ribs and start to straighten the right leg. Just draw in toward the straight leg. Nice easeful in-breath and out-breath. And now very slowly, same thing, it's really tricky to just keep your balance as you slowly lift yourself up and release your foot. Now let's come to the mat again. And as you come to the mat, come to a seated position. In your seated position, with your feet forward, with your knees bent, just turn your hands so that the fingers now turn to face the same direction as the toes. And if you'd like to be a little higher, that's why we've got blocks, so that it can just give you a feeling of opening the chest nicely. Now, there are lots of alternatives in this pose here. For those of you that whose knees are really fussy, then I would suggest that you straighten your right leg and take your left foot in the same form that we were just in. Take your left bent leg just down in the same way that it was before. Maybe most of us can bend the knee just a little bit here. And as you bend the knee, just draw your heart forward and keep on taking the left thigh away from you. So you just, it's a nice hip opener, nice way to protect the knees here in this version. Now that you've been in the pose for a couple breaths, just draw the right foot a little bit closer to the pelvis here and keep on working to take the left knee wide. Just open up really nicely. Keep on pressing your hands to bring your heart more forward. And now slowly release out of the pose. And I'll change my angle just so that you can see here. So again, you can start with straight legs and then take the ankle up. Or for some of us, a straight leg on the floor is required just to work this knee properly. But if you can bend your knee and place your hands back, then see about using your blocks as well to get even more lift to the heart. And you'll know, like on what side, on each side, there's a lot different feeling, right? So one side is really open, one side is a little tougher to work with. But see about as you work the heel just a little bit closer, keep on taking the right knee wide, keep on opening the chest nicely, keep that, keep a nice engagement, and slowly release out of the pose. So for those of us that were working with the straight leg, let's do that again. And for those of you that didn't work with a straight leg, try this. Take your ankle just to the outside of the right knee and keep your right leg straight. Take a strap now around the straight leg. Just hold on to the strap. Get really tall. So when the hands were behind us, we were working to open the chest. Now try to keep that same sensation of a nice open chest as you draw your heart toward your lifted toes toward your really engaged toes, toward your spread toes. Just walk your hands a little bit closer to your toes and get this nice length. And inhale, rise up. Good. All right. And everyone, again, will meet on the opposite side with the left foot forward, with the right ankle to the outside of the knee, with the strap just at the base of the toes there, not in the arch of the foot. Hold on to the strap, get tall, and go wide with your elbows. Just work your fingers down the strap as you go wide. Keep on reaching your heart beyond the tips of the toes. Just soften yourself a little bit more as you reach your heart forward. And breathe in and breathe out long. Keep drawing the right knee down toward the mat. Just soften as you reach your heart forward. And inhale, rise up, and let's come to lie on your back. And this is a pose that many of us are very familiar with, of course. Sucirandhrasana, it's called. So with your knees bent and lying on the mat, take one leg just to the outside of the knee, just in the same place it was. And take your interlaced fingers behind your thigh. Now, I like to recommend using the strap as well, because then you'll really, those of us that, love to press the low back against the mat, this will always protect the natural curve of the lumbar spine. So you can hold on to the strap. If that doesn't work for you, then of course interlace your fingers. But the point of this pose is to bring the thigh back, the bent leg thigh back, or the knee that's closest to your heart, back away from your heart. So if that's one great thing about the strap, is that it allows you to free a hand so that you can push not the knee, but the top of the thigh away from your belly there. And release now the foot down and come to the opposite side. So as you take your strap right behind the thigh, or interlace your fingers, whichever works for you. Lift your foot up and just draw the thigh in as you start to move the opposite leg, the supported leg there, just a little bit further. And this is a pose where you really start to recognize differences between the sides. You breathe in and you breathe out. You just allow yourself to be very fully in the pose. And now slowly release your foot, take your strap out, and let's come to our final pose, which is it's called double pigeon or fire log pose, whatever. And it just involves putting one shin on the other. But oh my, these fire logs, these shin bones are really far away from each other. So I like, as a person with knee issues myself, this is a very challenging pose for me. So just to get a little height, so I feel like the alignment of the knees relative to the pelvis is going to work in this pose. So, and again, this is not necessarily for everybody here. And if you feel like, oh, this is so painful, especially for my bottom leg, then you definitely want to straighten the bottom leg. And you just draw the thigh down. But if you can go for the double pigeon pose, by all means. So one side might be a little bit crabby, and as you can see, so much space between the ankle and the knee. Let's see how the other side works here. So just be easeful here in getting yourself into the pose. As you work powerfully through the foot, the edge of the foot, both edges of the feet are working powerfully, and in the same way that we were just doing in sucirandhrasana, you're just taking the top of the thigh down. And again, these poses aren't for everyone. You'll know if you've got some past injuries that are really restricting your movements. Just be easeful on yourself. Thank you so much for joining the practice. Namaste.